Good day, everybody. Welcome to my Ironman guide video. As the title suggests, this is going to be a guide to help you, as an Ironman, get to unlocking Prifddinas, I think I said that right, and the Sunspear, namely by completing the quests Plague's End and River of Blood, and getting to the somewhat difficult requirements for an Ironman to unlock those quests. I thought it'd be a good point in my Ironman's lifespan to make a guide around this. I've had this account for about 3.5 months at this point, going on 4. I unlocked Prif at about the 3-month mark and just completed River of Blood right before making this video. I consider this a pretty good mid-tier account once you've got those two things down. So you can also think of this video as a guide for a very low beginner Ironman to mid-game. I have learned a lot in this little Ironman journey, coming from, well, having a main account that is maxed out in stats and other ways. I've been having a lot of fun on this Ironman account, and I actually have not touched my main at all since creating this. That being said, while I do think it's overall more fun for me at this point than having a main, there are a lot of things that are more tedious, difficult, and painful when you're an Ironman and when you can't buy and trade things with other players. So I'm going to go over skills that you need for River, Blood, and Plague's End, especially the ones that are difficult to raise, as well as other ways of getting experience and raising skills that I found very useful. Hopefully, using my experience here, those of you watching can have a better time with your Ironman accounts than I did and avoid some of the struggles that I had to. So first, we'll start with Dungeoneering, probably the easiest and most straightforward and useful skill they should raise. You will need to get this to 75 for Plague's End, and a number of other useful reasons. Namely, one of the first things you should do on any account, especially in Iron, is level up your Dungeoneering to get the skilling support scrolls and boosts, namely these scrolls that you can unlock that save items and make skills more proficient, like Herblore, Crafting, Construction, as well as things like a gem bag and Bone Crusher and other combat items. So especially when you're low level, Dungeoneering is a great way to level up combat and a bunch of other skills. Even at higher levels, Dungeoneering can be pretty good experience if you take the time to do woodcutting, fishing, cooking. And a lot of players on Ironman accounts prefer a Dungeoneering method of getting crafting levels. I think this is more effective once your combat is a little bit higher and you can clear dungeons faster. I'll talk about crafting as well, since that's one of the more difficult skills to raise as an Ironman, and describe that a bit more in detail there. But Dungeoneering is essentially the same on an Ironman as it would be on a main, especially now, since as of very recently, you can do group Dungeoneering with other Ironman accounts. This was not possible until very recently, but if you can find a team of Ironmen, all the better. You can get experience all that much faster. Some players on Ironman accounts prefer elite dungeons for low levels of Dungeoneering experience, but honestly, I think if you have not yet gotten the Sunspear and Plague's End done, you shouldn't be worrying about elite dungeons yet, as I think they'll be really difficult for you. One of the major benefits of having 75 Dungeoneering early on as well is for crafting, since probably the most proficient method pre-Plague's End to level up crafting is by mining gem rocks. So you will get access to the level 75 resource dungeon in the Alcarid mines. Once you have 75 Dungeoneering, that will give you access to Necronium rocks, which is the most convenient location by far for those, as well as some mid-tier gem rocks, which you can mine for crafting experience. Some players also go even higher with Dungeoneering. I believe it's level 85 or 95. You know what? I'll double check and write it in here. To get access to the Frost Dragon's resource dungeon. A lot of Ironman players prefer that for gathering Frost Dragon bones to level Prayer. I did not do that. I had other ways that I liked of getting to 75 Prayer, but that is one thing to consider if you'd like to go about leveling Prayer that way. Speaking of Necronium rocks and mining, that leads me to mining, another skill that you'll need at level 75 in order to complete Plague's End. This one is also straightforward. There's not much of a difference, if any at all, between doing this on an Ironman versus the main. Before level 75, there's really no difference at all, since the only real differences are later on when you want to start stockpiling stone spirits and super juju potions, or perfect juju potions rather. Yeah, you'll have a harder time doing that on an Ironman account, but really, before level 75 mining, you don't need to worry about that too much in the first place, since it won't be hard. It's not a hard skill to raise along with smithing, but personally on my accounts, mining and smithing were some of the first skills that I raised and AFK'd. since it does come in very handy for creating your own melee gear. And smithing just has a variety of uses that are quite rewarding pretty early on, besides just making melee gear. But not much else to say here. Just train mining as you normally would. It is generally most advantageous to mine and smith the highest level ores that you can. As an Ironman, you'll want to focus on creating burial sets. As soon as you get to adamant or higher, you'll see that smithing goes up quite quickly with that. And because as an Ironman account, you're not really interested in selling your bars or selling products to other players, you have really no use for excess bars except burial smithing. Next up is woodcutting. Woodcutting is one that you will also need level 75 for in order to complete Plague's End. You will also need level 76 earlier to complete Branches of Darkmire and start getting blisterwood equipment. This skill is also straightforward to train. I think it's one of the more annoying ones since it goes a little bit slowly in my opinion. But basically the strategy is to get to level 47 woodcutting by sticking to really oak trees, I think are the best to stick to before then. And then immediately get to Menaphos and get to chopping Acadia trees. Those are all the way up to level 99 really, the most efficient experience that you can get. Also, at least in my experience, by the time I got to 76 woodcutting, I had about 12,000 Acadia logs. These come in handy for a lot of things. They are great for simple components, for mentioned later. They are great fire making experience, which you will also need at level 76 for River of Blood. And you can use them to fletch a lot of arrow shafts, which will also be helpful as an Ironman. So generally, Acadia logs are a good way to go. One thing I will mention is that it is relatively easy to acquire a dragon hatchet. That is probably the easiest dragon tool to acquire. Even as early as level 60 magic, you can start soloing Dagonoth Rex from a safe spot. I did this a lot. The drop rate is 1 in 128. Rex just has a lot of good drops in general anyways, and it should be very easy for you to do that. So as soon as you hit level 60 or 61 rather, woodcutting, I highly suggest soloing Dagonoth Rex until you get the hatchet drop. And then of course, once you unlock Prif, you can turn that into a crystal hatchet pretty easily and have the highest tier hatchet in the game pretty early on. Next up, let's talk about prayer. This is an interesting one in my experience as an Ironman. This one is simultaneously more difficult, but also more easygoing as an Ironman account for a number of reasons. So there are a lot of ways to go about this. The first thing I would suggest is doing the Ectofunctus until you get 1200 tokens. That's what you need to get the full first age outfit, which is the prayer experience boosting skill outfit. One good way to do this is to use ashes from demons. That way you don't have to go through the bone grinder process and you just need buckets of slime. Or with a moderate hunter and farming level, you can get the scarab that allows you to, the scarab powder from Het's Oasis that allows you to grind all bones in your inventory at once for 30 minutes. I did this for experience with a lot of Dagonoth bones that I got from Dagonoth Rex, as well as dinosaur bones that I got from Hunter, as well as whatever other bones I gathered that I needed to supplement things here. So the Ectofunctus is a little bit tedious. Those are the only ways I would suggest doing it, aka just avoiding bone crushing bones one by one until you get the prayer outfit. Now, at that point, if you have unlocked cremation, which is a rare unlock from killing ghost type creatures like aberrant specters or regular ghosts or whatnot, you can then start cremating bones for decent prayer experience. I believe the rate is double the experience of burying the bone. This is less than a Gilded Altar, which is times 2.5, or the Ectofunctus, which is times 3 or times 3.5. It might be pretty big, actually. But anyways, if you have cremation unlocked at this point, I would strongly suggest going with that, and I did that mostly to 75 prayer and beyond, with mainly dinosaur bones that I got from Big Game Hunter, because I was pretty big on Big Game Hunter in this account, as well as, like I mentioned, Dagonoth bones are great from Dagonoth Rex. Now, while cremation is not something you typically do on a main account for cost-effective purposes, for an Ironman, it's a good way to get very good prayer experience, and it's definitely more time efficient than the Ectofunctus or even the Chaos Altar in the Wilderness or Gilded Altar at 75 construction. This is because those methods take a lot of time and a lot of running around, whereas with cremation, you just start a fire and throw bones into it, just like you do with regular logs. Cremation also gets you a buttload of fire making experience alongside a prayer experience, which you don't get with other methods. This can save you hours of sitting at bonfires with logs later, and I found that extremely helpful. So, if you do have cremation unlocked, please do that and save yourself a lot of time. I suggest heading into Big Game Hunter as early as you can because those dinosaur bones do add up.
Up next, let's talk about crafting. This skill, out of all the skills on an Ironman account, is the one that sucked much more than I expected it to. You expect some things like agility and Herblore and whatnot to suck due to not having a lot of bonus experience and all that stuff, but due to lack of supplies and difficulty in getting supplies, crafting is actually very slow to train, and your experience per hour as an early Ironman really caps at like 50k per hour. Let me explain why and explain the best methods I think to train crafting. So, of all the research I've done and of everything I've tried and of everything I've looked up on the wiki and Reddit and whatever, the consensus generally is that the best way to train from level 1 to 75 crafting is at the uncommon gem rocks in Alcarid, at the mine there. So this is the lower level gem rocks that give sapphires, emeralds, and rubies. This is because you can mine them fairly quickly and then just cut the gems for experience. So for this reason, I mentioned before that Dungeoneering is important to get things like the gem bag, and for crafting specifically, I would say that the upgraded gem bag is a must. I also tried the higher level gem rocks, like the ones that you find in the in Shiloh Village or in the level 75 Dungeoneering resource dungeon, also Alcarid. Those give better mining experience if you need that, so it could be good for that. And they also give gems up to diamonds and sometimes dragonstone, I believe, or no, that's higher level rocks, sorry. Either way, the point is that because the rate of mining those gems is slower, it actually still is faster crafting experience per hour to just stick to the lower level gem rocks in the Alcarid mine. So there's that method, which if you're doing it well with gem bag, or also porters can help if you have them, or if you have the premier artifact, this is a great time to use the like 50% chance of porter buff. Yeah, that caps at about 50k experience per hour if your mining level is good and you can mine a rock in one hit. Otherwise, the only method I've heard of that is decent, but I would say more tedious and not worth it until your combat level is higher, is through Dungeoneering. So basically the strategy is you go through a medium or even large Dungeoneering floor, kill everything, farm everything you can, get all the resources, make everything, sell everything you can, or alch everything you can, although it takes a lot longer. And then once you have all the money in the entire dungeon, you buy Proto-Mastix leather, the tier 1 leather, and you just make bodies. And then once you're done, you sell them to the store, buy more hides, and make more Proto-Mastix bodies, and keep going until you run out of money for the floor, and then you just complete the floor. I've heard that some players can hit 100k experience per hour in crafting doing this, but again, I think that's only really realistic once your combat level is much higher. And if you're not at Plague's End or River of Blood yet, that's probably not the case for you. So if you're training Dungeoneering and you don't mind spending extra time on other skills, which really for an Ironman, Dungeoneering is great for training other skills and it takes longer for that reason. It's not a bad way to go. I did it for a little bit, but I found that for pure crafting training, sticking to the gem rocks is generally faster. One other thing that I would suggest strongly is joining a clan and doing the crafting station every week. It's an easy way to keep your what is it called, the clan bonus up that you get after the tier 3 clan bonus, so you can redeem experience that way. But also because at that point, before level 75 and before you get to the harps in Prif, the crafting experience is decent compared to gem rocks, and it also gets you some of the only bonus experience in the game that you can get as an Ironman. When you visit the quartermaster and claim experience, it's actually quite high for crafting, so definitely do that weekly, as it's the only bonus experience you'll get there. And that's really all there is to say about that. Crafting just sucks due to lack of resources, but I mean, to put a positive spin on it, you'll end up with thousands of cut gems by the time you're at 75 crafting, so you can sell these to gem shops or general stores for quick cash if you're an Ironman, or save them for precious components later. You'll effectively never need to worry about precious components. And you can save some gems for making necklaces for porters and things like that, so there are some things you won't have to worry about later if you go that route. but I would say that crafting was probably the most painful, unexpectedly painful skill to raise as an Iron Man, as these are really the only methods to do it. Speaking of sucky skills, let's talk about agility next. So you will need 75 agility as well for Plague's End, or the quest beforehand. I don't remember. Either way, to get Prif, you need 75 agility. There's no easy way to go about this either. Aside from doing dailies and quests and things along those lines, what I strongly preferred was actually the wilderness course as soon as you're able to do it. Given that you buy the Surefoot aura, I think if I remember right, it only costs 5,000 loyalty points. And for Ironmen and Ironwomen accounts, it is an absolute must because experience rates for agility are pretty low, especially at lower levels. And on a main account, you can buy Silverhawks or acquire Silverhawks through Treasure Hunter and do it that way. That's what I did on my main account for the most part, especially during double experience. You can just rack up bonus experience and cores and Silverhawks and plow through agility that way. But unfortunately, you don't really have that option as an Iron Man. So to be shortly long-winded, I ended up for the most of my actual agility training getting a wilderness skull and doing the wilderness agility course. If you're worried about PKers, you can do it at like odd hours of night or whatever, unpopulated worlds. But really, so far at 77 agility and the wilderness course being my main method of training, I haven't really encountered any problems with PKers. I don't think it's a really effective way to PK people anyways at this point in RuneScape history, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But if you don't already know, the Wilderness Skull gives you a pretty big boost. I think it's times 2.5 to the Wilderness Agility course experience. And every other agility course available is pretty crappy. The only comparable one maybe is Het's Oasis at level 65, because you'll get pieces of Het and things like that. And there is a talent scout there also, while laps take longer to complete. That's one little drawback, I guess. The experience is great, but if you want to acquire agility outfit pieces, honestly, the wilderness course is better because the chances of the talent scout calling you are higher. Aside from that, the only other thing I would recommend is the Anachronia lap portions that you can complete. I believe the first portions you can complete are at level 50 and then at level 70. These will get you totem pieces and again, like Anachronia base camp materials rarely, and codex pieces, which you will eventually most definitely want for double surge. If not also double escape. So there's no way around it. Agility sucks. Honestly, the limited bonus experience you can get as an Iron Man, namely from Agoroth, it's not a terrible idea to put it in agility if you're doing well in the other skills, just for the sake of saving yourself time of going through tedious agility courses. So not much more to say there. I can only say I never did the wilderness agility skull thing on my main, but I strongly recommend that for an Iron. Next up, let's talk about Herblore. So this one over time is not bad if you don't rush it or prioritize it first, but it is also kind of resource limited on an Iron Man account, so it sucks in that way. But more so than the other skills that you need to raise, like crafting, there are nice ways to get resources over time. So first off, there is Kingdom Management, which you unlock by doing the Miscellanea quest lines and managing Miscellanea. It is a very good strategy to put all your resources into herb gathering for a while until your Herblore level is pretty high. It's you can check weekly, at least I check my kingdom weekly, to let the resources build up. And you do get a fairly high number of herbs from there for some good experience. Another must-do for Herblore experience weekly is Herby Werby, the minigame on Anachronia. You can also get minor firemaking experience here, which is a plus, but mainly you'll want to do this weekly for Herblore experience and for points, so you can unlock further Anachronia totems, and once you've unlocked everything that you want to unlock in the little Herby Werby shop, you can start buying small Herblore experience lamps as well to supplement things. So at lower Herblore levels, you won't get much experience, but it'll at least help you get a level or two per week. And the experience really adds up, and it's one of the best ways to get Herblore experience without actually using any supplies on an Iron Man, so definitely do Herby Werby every week. Otherwise, this is another great skill to use your lamps or bonus experience that you get, which, as an Iron Man are limited. It's one of the few skills I would suggest lamping and bonus experiencing. And really, aside from those methods, there's, combat, slayer, etc. on monsters that will drop you a lot of herbs. There are certain monsters like aberrant specters and banshees that drop more herbs than others, but generally I found it worth it to just do Slayer or regular combat training. There are particular monsters too that drop secondary ingredients that can be helpful, like Croesus you can start doing as a pretty early Ironman with just relatively high skills in either hunting, woodcutting, mining, etc. And also Arch Glacor, I will get to in a little bit for combat training, drops some secondary ingredients that are quite good and useful. But really, there's not much more to it than that. Herblore is pretty straightforward. It takes a long time to train, again, due to resource limitations, but if you don't prioritize it first or worry about power leveling it first, you can just kind of rack up experience over time. It will take a while, but it'll get there. The next skill I want to talk about is construction. So this one, again, sucks, but not as much as the other skills. So I would say a requirement for power leveling this one is kingdom management, so that you can allocate resources to teak logs. And you'll find that in a week or two, or maybe 3, you will end up with thousands of teak logs. And I do recommend teak logs over mahogany as an early to mid-level Ironman, just for money efficiency, since mahogany costs much more money to make planks out of per experience. So teak is actually much more experience efficient for your money. But anyways, do that, get a bunch of teak logs over time, and then once you have a bunch of teak logs, start doing construction contracts as early as you are able to. To be honest, let's see, you need 40 construction for that. I remember doing a bunch of quests with construction experience to get close to 40, and then just building furniture, building, chairs, dining tables, whatever in your house until you get to 40. As soon as you hit 40, switch entirely to construction contracts, because eventually you will probably want the Grandmaster Construction outfit, and they award much more experience per plank, and it's actually pretty fast experience if you build up, make a bunch of planks ahead of time to get a bunch of secondary supplies ahead of time. I won't go into how construction contracts work for this guide, but definitely look that up. I never did them before, actually, on my main account. Construction contracts were released way before I got back into RuneScape, so I never got interested. And I just always got a bunch of protein planks and didn't worry about it. I just kept, rebuilding prawn brokers. But as an Ironman, who is, again, resource limited, or an Ironwoman account, you will want to get the most bang for your buck out of each plank. And especially when you get to teak planks at level 60 construction, or is it 50? One of the two. Experience rates can, for me at least, get to like 120k an hour, which is not excellent, but to get to at least 75, it's not so bad. As far as lamping and bonus experience goes, I would save it for the other skills like crafting, herblore, or agility, since, of all the crappy skills, construction actually does raise pretty fast. On to summoning. This is another one that you will need for Plague's End, so level 75. This one I found to be the most unexpectedly pain-free. So not totally pain-free, but over time, pretty easy to raise, especially as you just do Slayer, combat training, etc. that you'll need anyways for these quests and acquire charms. The only thing you need to worry about here is having cash for shards. Yes, even as an Ironman, you are not exempt from needing cash money to raise summoning. But thanks to the introduction a while ago of like Bogrog in the Ogre City, you can exchange pouches that you have made for shards to get some of that money back. I found that this raises pretty quickly, especially once you unlock Menaphos and you have access to that altar. It's pretty nice. Definitely do familiarization, that weekly minigame, once per week until you have the full shaman outfit. And especially, I think what helped a lot for me, at least, that I'll get into when we talk about combat, is fighting the Arch Glacor a lot. Aside from regular Slayer, the Arch Glacor drops a lot of charms per kill, especially blue charms, which, if you're concerned about time efficiency like I am, is really helpful. That way, when you rack up a bunch of blue charms, for example, what I did is just made a ton of mithril bars, and for the final stretch of my summoning there, just made mithril minotaur pouches, and that will get you to 75 summoning pretty fast. You won't need a lot of time at all to get to 75 summoning. You will just need charms and money for shards and secondary ingredients. So I would say of all the skills, don't really worry about this one. Don't worry too much about putting it off. If there's any reason to rush, I would say it'd be to get the bunyip for your combat and bossing. at mid-level. And aside from that, really just don't worry about summoning too much. You'll get the charms, and it'll get there pretty fast once you get the charms and the money. The last skilling skill I want to talk about is firemaking. So you need 76 firemaking just for River of Blood. It's not a requirement for Prif, and you don't need too high of firemaking for anything else. Just when you start getting into River of Blood, you'll need that. So I honestly don't remember grinding this one too much. I grinded the last 7 levels, I think, from 69 or so to 76 with the Acadia logs I had built up on the bonfire and Prif. Otherwise, I got all the way to 69-ish firemaking through cremation that I mentioned earlier. If you level up your prayer a lot through cremation and high-level bones, you'll find that you get a ton of firemaking levels in the process, so I very much recommend that. Otherwise, if you're not able to or don't want to do cremation, like I mentioned before, Irby Werby grants some minor firemaking experience, but otherwise, this is not a hard skill, especially if you train it after training woodcutting and gather up logs. Worst case, you'll just spend some hours on a bonfire throwing logs in there. But again, I very highly recommend cremation to save you time on prayer and firemaking, because like I said, I didn't even have to grind anything until the last handful of levels. So that's really all I have to say about that. It's simple enough. Combat training is up next. So for Plague's End, you actually just need level 75 ranged and summoning, since that's a combat skill. But for Lord of Vampirium, you need level 75 in all combat skills, and for the Sunspear quest, River of Blood, you will need 78 attack, ranged, and magic. There are a number of ways to go about combat training, of course. What I found pre-level 60 is that there's not really a solid way to go about it. I mostly just did quests for some of the early combat experience, like Waterfall, Fight Arena, Monkey Madness, things like that give huge chunks of combat experience that can easily boost you into the 40s. After that, I kind of just did Slayer. Slayer is a little bit annoying at lower levels or mid levels, as some tasks can be pretty bad, but overall it's not bad to start raising Slayer then. Once you get to level 60, I strongly suggest something that I have not really seen in any other guide, and I'm a little bit surprised by it, but I very much recommend starting the Archglackor as soon as you hit level 60 and get tier 60 equipment. Here's why. There's a lot of reasons why, actually. With no potions really and no combat prayers, just protection from magic, I found that Archglackor kills take between 4 to 4.5 minutes with tier 60 equipment. Each kill, this is with no mechanics, by the way, and each kill of a no mechanics Glackor gives you more than 8,000 combat experience. So that means about 120k experience an hour, maybe 100k experience an hour in combat, which for tier 60 is pretty high, I would say. You will be splashing a lot, but it doesn't really matter. The Archglackor doesn't do a lot of damage to you once you have protection from magic. The Archglackor also gives you a lot of drops that you will not find from any other combat at that point. The only thing comparable is probably Croesus, and that's a skilling boss, so won't really mention that in the same breath, but the Archglackor will give you things like Onyx Dust, a lot of charms, summoning focus, a lot of secondary ingredients to summoning pouches, Auric Alchem Salvage, which high alchs for 75,000 GP, along with just a lot of coin GP drops. I would say it's a good moneymaker and a good supply gathering boss for a lot of your mid-level needs. So anyways, once you hit tier 70 combat with tier 70 gear, I found that kills take about 2 to 2.5 minutes, so there's a substantial improvement there, which effectively means at least 200,000 experience an hour in combat. Every time I've been at the threshold of, just before tier 75 or just before tier 70 combat, I just go to the Archglackor. It's effectively AFKable, especially if you have the Vampirism aura, or if you choose maybe like a Bunyip and a Penance aura, so you don't have to worry about prayer potions. You can mostly AFK it, and at lower levels you do have to worry about the Creeping Cold a little bit, because it does a lot of damage when it hits you, but I effectively just did this with Tuna, maybe like Swordfish at tier 60. But I found this to be a really good source of combat and experience and money and supplies. that nobody ever really talks about for this low level. So that's my suggestion aside from Slayer and other quests for raising combat, those stats that you need for River Blood and Lord of Vampirium before that. I would add to this combat training as well as, well, I guess I have one suggestion for training a variety of skills at once, and that is cremating Vires. So before you get the Sunspear, even like the sword version from Lord of Vampirium, you can complete Branches of Darkmire and get access to Blisterwood weapons, and that will allow you to start killing Firewatch. There is, if you're low level and you're not soul splitting yet, of course, here, I recommend this building that I'm in right now, as there are only 2 Vires that spawn in here. And with a Vampirism Aura or like a Bunyip and something like that and food, you should be able to take on 2 Firewatch at once. You can kill them, get Vire corpses. You should at some point be burning and cremating manually 500 Vire corpses anyways, as that there are achievements behind that, but also it boosts the damage that you'll get later with the Sunspear, which is extremely helpful. Cremating Vires manually also, of course, grants you prayer experience, fire making experience, and columbarium keys, which gives you nice rewards that are hard to get on an Ironman anyways. So I strongly suggest doing some of your combat training with Blisterwood weapons at Vires until you have at least 500 shades cremated. Sorry, not shades, Vires. Then, once you have completed Lord of Vampirium and you have the sword version of the Sunspear, the tier 75 one, I would also recommend doing killing Vires for melee experience, maybe like the level 78 attack you need if you still don't have it, as the Sunspear will, of course, cremate Vires on the spot, and you'll get some good prayer and fire making experience that you might still need at that point anyways. Alongside, of course, really valuable drops for money, secondary Herblore ingredients, and invention components. So that was a doozy, but that covers all of the skills that you will need for Plague's End and River of Blood. Now I would like to talk about something else that is extremely helpful for Ironman, which is the sources of lamps and bonus experience that you can get as an Ironman. This is obviously much more limited than your options on a regular account, but they are pretty critical to getting all these skills to where they need to be and avoiding as much manual training as possible. So the first, possibly most obvious and helpful, is daily challenges. For daily challenges, I would recommend getting to level 50 rune crafting as early as possible so that you can start making Viswax. And at that point, just start stocking up on runes from rune shops. The Wizards Guild in Yano is a good one since they have 1,000 in stock of each base rune. If you don't already know, Viswax can be used to extend your daily challenges at a cost of 25 Viswax per challenge, so that you basically do double the amount of things, but you get double the amount of experience from the challenge. You can also re-roll challenges to randomly select a different skill to have the challenge for at a cost of 10 Viswax. This is expensive for a low-level Ironman, as you might not have that much money, and runes are not that easy to come by in the quantity of thousands. But once you're well into your mid-level Ironman, you should be able to. You should have the money to acquire thousands of runes from shops as needed daily, and definitely maximize your use of these challenges. So try to re-roll them as much as you can to land on skills like summoning and construction, herblore, agility, crafting, even the ones that are resource limited or just the most time consuming. This is what you could call lamping, or the closest thing to lamping that you can get that's still available to Ironman. So definitely make use of that. Another source of lamps, or I guess experience tomes, is the Jack of Trades aura, specifically the upgraded version, the Master Jack of Trades aura. This one is an absolute must for Ironman. I never bothered with this one on my main account because there are so many sources of bonus experience and lamps there, like Treasure Hunter. But on an Ironman, the Master Jack of Trades aura is an incredible source of just bonus experience every day. On mid-level skills, the reward grants about 10,000 or more experience. Once per day, that can really add up. As a side note, if you have the Premier artifact on your account, you can use that to recharge the Jack of Trades aura and use it twice per day. If you don't know how it works, basically for the base tier of the Jack of Trades aura, you activate it. It lasts for 3 hours, and then you have that time period to gain experience in 10 different skills. It can be just one experience point, whatever. As long as you gain experience in 10 different skills in the allotted 3 hour time period, you can then deactivate the aura and speak to that Zhuan guy in Berthope, and he will give you a reward book, which I believe is the equivalent of like a medium experience lamp. With the master, sorry, at least with the master Jack of Trades aura, it's a medium experience lamp, and with the master Jack of Trades aura, you'll have to get experience in 15 different skills. There are a lot of ways to do this. I suggest just going to Berthope and doing as many skilling things as you can. You can also kill things with melee combat and just enable experience in all three, attack, strength, defense. That way, when you kill something, you'll get experience in those three plus Constitution, so that's 4 skills out of the way right away. I also very much suggest shifting tombs as soon as you can unlock those, and enabling, if you have level 50 in all the skills that shifting tomb entails, you can start toggling to get experience in those, all those skills. So going through the shifting tombs, shattering the urns will get you experience in random several skills, and completing the shifting tombs with all the objectives complete will also grant you experience in a bunch of other skills. So it's a quick way to get the rewards that are good from shifting tombs anyways, like a soul talisman and the offhand Kopesh that you'll need later, as well as some money, and just to very quickly knock out like 10 skills that you'll need to complete for that Jack of Trades aura. So I strongly suggest that one. It's great. I touched on clan citadels and being part of a clan earlier as one of the only sources of bonus experience you can get as an Ironman, so I won't go into detail much more on that, but the only other source of bonus experience I know of as an Ironman you must get, and that is by completing the Shadow over Ashdale quest and unlocking the Agoroth weekly fight. So if you remember, you actually get to fight Agoroth twice per week, and after fighting Agoroth successfully, you get a Black Pearl, which is, from what I see, roughly like a medium bonus experience star. So because you can do this twice per week, once your skills are at like mid-tier, that means about 10 or 12,000 experience per pearl, bonus experience rather. So every week this will effectively grant you 20 to 24,000 bonus experience when it really matters. Lower if your levels are lower, of course, but it still helps. The Agoroth fight is very quick. It actually scales to your level, so it's never too difficult. And once your combat is fairly decent, you can actually just tank through all of Agoroth's attacks and eat once you've killed him. So it's a pretty quick fight, and it's a great way to get quick bonus experience that's well worth the time. Again, for skills like agility to save you time, or crafting, herblore, construction to save you materials. Another well-known quest slash minigame is Tears of Guthix. It is a very short quest with low requirements, and it is also a weekly minigame that you can play for actually a surprising chunk of experience. I never did this one much on my main account either, again due to the overwhelming amount of bonus experience and lamps possible. But I actually found that for an Ironman account, it's well worth it. As an example, in one game of Tears of Guthix, I went from 40 to 44 summoning. At almost, up until you hit the level mid-60s, you'll pretty much get one free level every time you play Tears of Guthix in the lowest skill that you have. If you're not already aware, Tears of Guthix automatically applies the experience you get to your lowest skill, not counting Invention. Well worth it on Ironman accounts. And very quick and easy to do, so definitely suggest that. I have only one more suggested thing to do for bonus experience before ending this video, and it's last on my list because I personally avoid it if possible, because it's a little bit long-winded and annoying, and that is Broken Home. If you're not familiar, Broken Home is a fairly fun, kind of horror-themed quest, but very long. And the deal with that is that you can replay it weekly. It's like a haunted house quest that you can replay weekly. And if you complete all 3 bonus challenges in one go, then from that point forward, every time you replay Broken Home, you will get a huge experience lamp as a reward. This becomes very nice later when your skills are higher level. When your skills are in the 70s or mid 70s, A huge experience lamp means like 35,000 experience, and once you get pretty proficient at doing Broken Home, it still takes about 30 minutes to go through the whole thing. So I'd say it's last on my list and avoidable if possible, because if you're on the road to Prif and the Sunspear, your levels are not going to be high enough that it's really worth it. I would only suggest it if you're like so close to 75 Herblore or 80 Herblore for River of Blood, and you're out of herbs and you just need like 30,000 experience or so, then you can do it. Or if you enjoy Broken Home, then yeah, totally go for it. I have a guide for that, a video for it as well. It's just really long-winded. Like I said, at minimum, you'll spend 30 minutes per week doing that for about, at most, 35,000 experience if you're, working on getting to level 75 or 78 for these quests. So it's an option that I wanted to throw out there, and it is pretty repeatable and doable, especially once you get used to it, just very long-winded. And with that, that brings us to the end of this video. There is a lot of content here, so if you stuck with it so far or just looked at the parts that were relevant to you, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. I have a number of quest guides and a number of just bossing videos and helpful other things for your runescaping. Let me know in the comments if this did help, if you have other methods of training these annoying skills as an Iron Man, if you have other Iron Man tips in general that I might have missed here. That would really help the community out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.